Hello and welcome to the Business of the Business podcast. I am your co-host, JP Japas from the Two Man Power Trip. Of course, joining me is the financial wrestling genius himself, Mr. Lavi Margolin. Lavi, how you doing today, sir?
Hey, John. An interesting week, I guess more interesting than we would hope. Unfortunately, Joe Koff, as everyone knows by now, of formerly of Ring of Honor, certainly of Sinclair in the TV business for his whole career, recently passed away.
Man, R.I.P. Joe Koff. Was this expected at all? I mean, I feel like not very old. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it kind of shocks me when some of these deaths arise.
Publicly, it was unexpected. I think Mike Johnson had reflected on it on PW Insider, that Joe had confided in him. I believe he had cancer, so certainly for him to share with Mike Johnson, obviously his family and his close friends would know as well. But it wasn't something known outside of these small circles, as far as I'm aware, in the wrestling business. So it's certainly a surprise. He seemed, pretty active in his early 70s, with Sinclair, and supporting those that he was connected with through Ring of Honor, most of whom were having success still with AEW. Um, Ian Riccaboni being one of them. But somebody that really had an impact on the business in unique ways, and certainly that Sinclair time period is something that I followed very closely. John, did you ever have the chance to meet Joe Koff at like an event?
No, I never have, never did. I know you met him because I saw that picture of you with Joe.
Yes, I love the promoter picture, although it was a few years ago. So the at least my camera phone at the time, I'm sure there were better ones with Apple. Um, didn't come out that well, but he was happy to take the picture. And even before then, when I would go to the Hammerstein, my preference was to get like in the first or second row of the first balcony, so I could go there and relax. And somehow they had messed up the seating, so the seats didn't actually exist. So
Oh,
I
wow.
was moved downstairs, but it was like the angle wasn't great or whatever. So Joe kind of came over to those of us who were displaced, and like he went over to the merchandise table. He's like, here, like giving DVDs, which I mean I didn't really care about at that point, but it didn't matter. Like it was the thought of the thing that mattered, and he was apologetic about it. So that was nice about it. But it was kind of like fun to like find somebody who threaded through so much of the business. I know for him, those Battle of the Belts thing was like a major
Yeah.
impact on him. And then ultimately, running Ring of Honor and really growing it till, that, all in. I don't know if you would consider it a strategic mistake on Joe Koff's part and the Sinclair group. There's word that Tony Khan was already planning, something major several months before this. So it was just maybe opportunistic that, the stars aligned in that way. But that, and forgot the timing of all this, but that was like the peak, and, something that he's talking about very satisfying to him to get in Madison Square Garden, which is amazing, right?
Yeah.
Like the last promoter to actually do it since the McMahons took over.
Yep.
But it was so high profile, there was kind of like like not the death knell, but like sort of like that last peak period, sort of like in a different way, and not to be overly dramatic, but it was kind of like the finger poke of doom for them. And like the results were weird. Like, what was it? Having Liger get screwed out of the battle royal, and then
Yep.
I know this doesn't sound like a big deal now, but like Jay Lethal didn't retain the belt, right? Like it was just like for the booking at that time, like it was a mistake. But not to focus so much on the negative, but Joe Koff, for the most part, was a corporate person, very careful, towed the company line, but so many people had so many good things to say about him. Um, he did manage the company, right? There is, I don't know if how it was ultimately resolved or if it was, but right, there was the Kelly Klein situation, so on which Joe Koff, no one had accused often, but when overseeing the company, he had to take some responsibility for that. But in managing a company like this, again, not to make excuses for it, these sort of things could happen, and it's basically how you respond to it. So, did he respond in the best way? I don't know. But overall, I think his legacy is a strong one, a positive one. A lot of people have good things to say about that him, and really helped usher in like a unique peak period, basically like 2017 to 2019, that Ring of Honor, Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, and so on. Like, right, Cody Rhodes obviously starting AEW, then going to WWE to become even bigger, and Young Bucks starting AEW, being some of the pillars there. So it was like a transitional foundational element, and it always seemed like there was the possibility, sort of like knocking on the door of opportunity. But the way Sinclair was run, with all the different syndication, and they're like being very conservative, not only politically, but in this situation financially, that it wasn't going to grow too much more. But like, it was exciting just to see a promotion which I tracked, as we know, like achieve over 1,500 average and so on, like for a few years, which was like a big deal for a non WWE company, for the first time. Well, since, I don't know, TNA did some big numbers, but then they would do like some dismal house shows. So I don't know what they averaged, but to do that consistently was the first time in several years, which it's hard to imagine that playing field. It feels so different, that time, John.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we do have a special guest joining us right now, Lavi.
Yes, welcome to Isaac Rodriguez of Wrestle Arrival, which of course you may know the promotion better through its previous name, VXS Wrestling. Isaac, welcome to the business of the business.
Oh man, I love this show. Hi guys.
How's
Hey,
it going,
welcome.
Isaac?
I'm good. I'm an avid follower of Business of the Business on Spotify, and I appreciate this being the first interview I have after a rebrand. So thank you for supplying the platform, and thanks for everyone tuning in, listening.
Awesome. Before we get into Arrival, obviously formerly VXS, let's talk a little bit about you. Where did you grow up? Where were you a fan? I know us in the Northeast, obviously like WWF people originally growing up. Like, where did you grow up, and what were you a fan of pro wrestling wise?
Sure, thank you. I'm 27 currently right now, and I grew up watching a lot of ECW at a very young age. I grew up being a fan of wrestling when I hit about like 4 to 5 years old. I saw Shawn Michaels. I think he super kicked Shelton Benjamin. I think that was the clip that I just switched the channels. I was switching channels, and once I saw that, I was hooked. Then came like the DVD and VHS catalog that I ended up having growing up. I grew up watching a lot of like Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, Liger, and I didn't get into Japanese wrestling until like high school. So yeah, I always loved wrestling. I used to go to independent shows. My first independent show I discovered online was PWG. I think 2013, 2012, 2013 Battle of Los Angeles, and their YouTube highlights were just like fascinating. I was like, oh, this isn't WWE, and a lot of guys ended up going to WWE. So to see that and the process, it was always intriguing at that aspect, to the point where I was like, okay, I'm a fan now beyond wrestling of just WWE, and then came Lucha Underground, which was just a complete game changer to what wrestling became, and the El Rey Network that supported it. Shout Robert Rodriguez. Influenced me to do vignette work. So growing up, I did a lot of vignette work for House of Glory out of New York. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I know you said where I was based out. I'm from Brooklyn, born and raised, still here. And I've been able to work with companies such as ICW back in the day, also House of Glory and Evolve Wrestling. Then the pandemic came along. There was no wrestling, just GCW, who, thank God, I was already really tight with Brett Lardell, who you had on the show also, which is great. Great listening. If you're listening right now and want to check out another episode, guys, I recommend the Brett Lauderdale episode. It was really dope. Even teased that he was gonna do Hammerstein first on on his podcast, I believe, on that episode. So you never know what you could come up with in this podcast. So yeah, dog. I used to do vignette work for GCW. Then the pandemic happened, and there was no wrestling, and I wanted to do something where it was a relatable project to fans of hip hop and trap culture. Because at the time, the SoundCloud website was popping in 2018, 2019. So I wanted to do a little project with that, and I found the right resources and the right people that believed in it, and got some sponsors together, and we're one of the first shows rather, back in America mid-pandemic after GCW. So I'm very, very proud to do that, and have been promoting now for 4.5 years now. And still, though I am the youngest in the game, I am a straight shooter. You can ask me anything, bro, and I will legitimately be as transparent as possible, and appreciate you for inviting me, guys.
Awesome. So obviously, with that, getting into the business, you have a huge show coming up, right? On the 22nd of November. Tell us about
Oh,
the
yeah.
big show and where it's at.
Absolutely. So, formerly Violence and Suffering, VXS, we wanted to branch out to something that was more family friendly, brand representation wise. I'm getting something in the works right now with a certain convention I don't want to name on the air right now, that likes comic books, and they saw what I was producing throughout the years, and also the names we've broken out. And with Violence and Suffering, I feel like I've done everything I had to do along that company, and time to start anew with Arrival, all caps, of course. Arrival. That's basically my homage to Evolve. Arrival is this is the first time I'm getting to say this publicly, finally. So Arrival's going to be a homage to what Evolve was. It's going to fill in that void that I feel is missing in the current independent state in America. I'm going to bring in a lot of overseas talent. As you see, we have our next show is called Arrival 3, and it's going to be taking place Friday, November 22nd, the day before AEW Full Gear in Rutherford, New Jersey. So if you're coming to New Jersey for AEW for Full Gear, and you want to see maybe Moxley bleed a bucket ton of blood, come the day before. We have amazing talent. Bringing in talent not many people are used to seeing around the area, especially people like Rev Pro's Michael Oku, coming from the UK, is going to be competing, as well as TNA's Zachary Wentz. He was just on NXT recently. Always had a great relationship with Zachary Wentz. He'll be competing that day. Drew Parker out of Wales, now competing in the UK, formerly Japan, Freedoms, and BJW. Drew Parker will be there. And today I just announced Masha Slamovich, your next Knockouts World Champion, is going to be at Arrival 3, November 22nd in Rutherford. Follow our socials at Wrestle Arrival. More info will be there. And yeah.
Michael Oku, that's a big one, because obviously he doesn't do much stuff in the States as of yet, right, but making a huge name for himself.
Oh, I loved his recent match. Winning the title from Ospreay was probably one of his best matches, and fully convinced me that he's ready. And also seeing him get that type of respect from someone like Ospreay speaks volumes. So, I just knew off seeing that match, and I'm like, yeah, he's ready. He should be in America. If PWG was still running, Michael Oku would be on there. I believe a lot of my guys that I use now, like Dante Leone, would be on there. Myron Reed would be on there. I just want to, again, fill that void that the only companies in America that are gaining momentum aren't just random matches, but also love the craft of this sport. I don't see just NXT and Raw, but I also watch Pro Wrestling Noah. I watch GLEAT. I just got into GLEAT. It's an amazing product on YouTube. I watch some TNA left and right. Even MLW, though, there's like a little beef there between me and MLW. They got me blocked for no reason. I went on my Twitter and they just blocked me, I guess, for nothing. Yeah, even MLW, I take like little nitpicks how they do graphic work, and I try to have the highest production value with what Arrival is going to provide. So yeah, I hope people just notice that.
Love
it. Lavi, what's going on?
So Isaac, first of all, you're in good company.
Thank you, Lavi.
Court was upset with me for a while, but we worked it out.
Court, yeah. I never met him. I never met him in person yet.
Yeah, nice guy. He actually we worked it out, and he joined us later
Awesome.
on the show. But love to hear that you have Masha Slamovich on
Thank
your
you.
upcoming show.
Thank you.
It's interesting because, as I'm admittedly somebody that doesn't know a lot about current products, she is my favorite. Like the first time I saw her name, Matthew Ryan of Catalyst Wrestling.
Awesome dude. Awesome dude.
Yeah, and like I was on his email list, and I was like, Masha Slamovich. I was like, that's an awesome name. And then I actually saw her, and I was just a big fan, and it was just like coincidental that basically going to GCW and Catalyst, which makes sense. Like every time I went, she was there. So I know that that's a great addition for you. The first time I actually became familiar with VXS was through Luis Perez. At PW Ponderings. He had a great article that focused on, most shows, usually go well and so on. He had like this great article about this disaster show. I don't want to give it all away. I'd love for you to tell the story.
Okay.
It was like the venue got changed 2 blocks away. The ring didn't show up. I think Brian Cage put his head through like the ceiling. If it's not too traumatic, take us back to that show.
Oh, absolutely. So remember when I mentioned earlier, VXS was one of the first indies to come back midst of the pandemic, and we did our first show at someone's farm to follow proper protocol and do an outdoor show. We were gonna do it. I believe it was in Jersey. It was somewhere in New Jersey, like South New Jersey, and my friend who was also involved at the time on the card, he had a farm, and we were advertising La Granja, secret location. DM us for the address, and La Granja, for my gringos listening, is the farm in Spanish. It's a complete troll, complete made up name that we had going on, and the main event was, I think, Tony Deppen versus Jonathan Gresham. And day of show, I have tons of missed calls, and I get called by the state's. I think that Jersey doesn't have athletic commission, but it was by the feds. It was by the police, and they were told that they were notified of the public event and that I don't have a proper permit, apparently, even though I was following all protocols I studied months in advance. They said that I can't do it because a local promoter apparently cop called on the show to stop it morning of. They said they got a call from another promoter. They said that this, that, and the third isn't going to be proper, even though it was. And they showed up at the venue, the farm rather, and they shut the show down. So me being a fight fanatic like I am, had a backup. And I had a backup in Philadelphia, and it was an abandoned Chinese buffet. And in this abandoned Chinese buffet ran some of my favorite Chinese bare knuckle fight club videos on YouTube. We went there, and we did the show with no ropes because being the first show, again, I took a major learning curve. The ropes I had that day, they were broken. So instead of having that, I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna say no. I'm gonna give everyone work. I'm gonna help produce the show best of my abilities as everyone involved. You got Brian Cage in there, Blake Christian in there, Alex Zane in there, and we're like, yeah, let's do a no ring show. Let's do like a no rope, but we have a ring, and it's like a 20 by 20 ring. This is a New Japan sized ring inside of a abandoned Chinese buffet. And Luis Perez was there, and he was taking photos, filling in social media at the time. And since then, he's been to every show, and he's seen the tremendous journey, I guess I would say, we've been through since then. And that was like nothing could get worse than that. So I was thrown in the fire for my first show, and since then I've thrown 23, 24 successful live broadcasts since then.
No, that's an awesome story. Louis captured it so well, but it's actually even more interesting now that you explain it.
It was a domino effect of what could go wrong. It was, all right, new venue, I guess. All right, let me email everyone individually. This is all me, just emailing people. And then I have my team of Jimmy, Orlando, GoPro Wrestling, so many people involved at the time, just communicating. It takes a village for this shit. I can curse, right?
Yeah.
All right, shit. All right, so I'm emailing everyone the new location, and we go to a new location, and what was set to stream live on Fight TV, no Wi-Fi or internet at location. So now not only is it delayed, now we have to make another update saying we're not live streaming anymore. We're going to tape it. But the main thing was, to just not give up, not just throw the towel, not just say, hey, we invested so much promotion in this, and I know fans outside of the tri-state area are watching and tuning in. I didn't want to let anyone down, and I just have that mentality of like it's possible, if as long as it's done correctly with the right people, it's possible, and ended up being one of the best shows of the year in 2020. Literally, no indie wrestling shows are going, just GCW, just ICW No Holds Barred. I've been through there. I helped produce ICW No Holds Barred in the beginning of their progress of doing that niche with the chains, and I've seen them through worse. So that kind of helped me.
So over the years, like, how has the business changed? I feel like there's been let's say like less emphasis on like super indies, where like
Sure.
like a gathering of major names. Sometimes it would be
Sure.
AEW stars coming to promotions and being able to like lift the ships there. Like, what's the state of the business that you've seen? How have things changed?
Thank you for asking me, because I know I'm still relatively young compared to a lot of promoters who have been through all of it. But I have been involved. I want to say for about 8 years, 9 years now. It's seeing a lot of detail and progress behind the scenes. Um, I definitely would say we have more options now, which isn't a bad thing, to each their own. But that comes with amazing things. There's tons of different niche audiences and options now besides WWE. Noticed that when I started in the independents, there wasn't really there wasn't MLW. TNA was on a flop. No one was watching it. New Japan was not even accessible in America. Uh, and NXT wasn't a thing. So, seeing not just NXT, but man, Prestige Wrestling's on fire. Deadlock Pro is on fire. Game Changer Wrestling's on fire. ICW right now is on fire on the comeback. You have promotions like Defy Wrestling that I'm a great fan of because of their cinematic style and presence and presentation. West Coast Pro for bringing in Marufuji to the West Coast. That was awesome, So it's dope to see people recognizing and continue the tradition. And I'd say it's a good thing that there are more options, because you have like really clean, crisp game demographic for Deadlock Pro, but then you have like the hip hop anime demographic for Arrival VXS. So everybody has their own thing going on. That's the best part about it, because that everyone can only grow more and more as everyone's getting signed.
So one of the things that I really appreciated was your candor in sharing your situation with Triller.
Yeah.
That it's a company that we've followed for quite a while, and as I've said here, I'm currently a shareholder, but just enough to keep it interesting.
Right.
I might make money, I might lose it all, I don't know,
Right.
but it keeps me involved. So can you sort of walk us through that relationship from the beginning, when you hit a frustration point, and kind of like where things are now, if anywhere?
Sure. Thanks for asking that. So people who don't know, Violence and Suffering VXS streamed from the notch from the first show on Fight TV, which is now Triller TV, at 2020. This was like right when AEW started, right when the world was getting back together and going to stream platforms. I felt it was the more appropriate one, having like fight fans. They had like Pinnacle Fight Club here, ECF fighting here. So we did that for a few, and during the fight process, I would always talk to Keith. Rest in peace, Keith of Fight. But he was my connect, and he was very transparent on checks I would receive, payments, splits, viewership ratings, and that was amazing. But that all changed once it became Triller TV. When Triller fully rebranded around like January, before January, a lot of promoters have been noticing not just a decline in their revenue, but also no communication at all whatsoever. So making that very stressful, especially someone like me. people don't notice. I do every graphic that we drop. I do every video package. I am very hands on with our emailing and distribution for our full matches and YouTube and everything. You know, I talk to the media. I don't have like a middleman or a lackey going like, "Yo, talk to Fight for me. Talk to Triller." I talk to Triller and everything like that, right? And yeah, we didn't get paid our revenue, especially after the first Arrival show in Queens, New York with Leo Rush. We didn't get that check or any payment at all from that show. And I was waiting, and it's really not me to like, you know, like speak out or like, you know, put someone on blast. That's not me at all. But it's the fact that I was partnered with this promotion producing badass shit to the point where no one was besides GCW when they needed something for their platform, you know, and to see them like just like treat day ones like that and not communicate, not pay them for months on months after trying to reach out multiple emails I would DM them instantly, and I just get runarounds like we're on holiday, sorry, we'll get back to you, it's coming this week. That went on for like a couple months, and then to the point before I went public about it, I did ask. I'm not gonna, out of respect, say their names, but the premier independent companies from Ohio, uh, Texas, Seattle, Las Vegas, that same issue, you know, and I was like, you know, guys, like let me just do something. I did a post that got very well received on Twitter, and that ended up like them replying to me a week after via email to settle that, and I'm still waiting for my check in the mail. But yeah, that's how it's been so far, and you know, I appreciate you asking that because you actually seen that, like just like especially the producers, man, take care of the creators. We lose the most out of, I feel, everything with all the time we put into this, you know, like that's how I feel about why MLW went to YouTube. That's how I feel why Prestige Wrestling went to YouTube. That's how I feel about Defy Wrestling went to YouTube. The list goes on, and I want everyone to be taken care of equally, not just have like push their favorite brand on the front page every week, you know.
So with multiple promoters, sometimes it's sort of like, okay, like let me move on and concentrate on what I need to do. But sometimes it's sort of like not only financially, but to sort of make a statement. Are you like considering your options, maybe like gathering the other promoters, you know, if you talk to a lawyer, like a class action lawsuit now that it's a public company, or sort of like keep following up with them, but ready to concentrate on other things too?
I think I'm ready to concentrate on other things too, because I'm really not one to be like, yo, let's take him to court. But also, I that doesn't mean I'm not communicating with the other promoters still to keep in touch of how they're being treated, and how they're gonna take care of these other promoters and other producers that they have on their platform. So I I keep in tap. I talk to all, even if it's not wrestling related. You know, I always try to communicate, which I feel is a lost thing with old head promoters, I would say, in America. Like you definitely want to like keep tabs on like how's it going across this state, this state. You know, we all want to grow together. I feel like that's a lost art. But yeah, I just I want everyone to win. You know, I know it sounds like, oh man, this guy, he's crying online, blah blah blah. Dog, this was over half a year ago, and I've been with the company for almost 5 years. Keep in mind not just the work we put in, but the money we put in. Stream revenue, you know, is very important. It was very crucial to why we didn't run monthly, and I'm very grateful to get actually a lot of supporters off of that believe in what we want to provide. You know, so I'm just very excited for the future. I want to focus on the future right now.
Sure. So, in terms of collaboration, a name that we
Yeah,
talked about, Brett Lauderdale of GCW. So,
sure.
since you've had formal shows together and so on, so like, where does that stand now, and when does it make sense to collaborate?
That's awesome. You guys come up with awesome questions. How's John doing? John's just there
Very
like, yo. No, listen, me and Brett, we talk all the time. We collaborate now on a very professional stance, because now that I'm back running shows, I want to be able to help him uh, cut all costs and all expenses if possible. So I will be running the day before their upcoming, what is it, American Dream, the venue, American Dream. They're running in a mall in New Jersey, and it's gonna be sick. And they're the Saturday, I'm the Friday, so we get to maybe help take care of the boys and give them more work than just one day. Uh, yeah, we collaborated on a few. I'm very grateful to be like one of the select few in America, at least, besides like Defy, to collaborate with GCW, because Brett gives me like full art control as well, full creative control and art control as well when it comes to marketing our collabs. So I like collabing with him. He's no complaints. Like just a pleasure to work with.
Awesome. Let me turn over to John.
Super chill dude.
Just let everybody know where they can follow you, where they can get tickets for the show, and everything that has to do with Arrival.
No, thanks, John. I appreciate y'all. You can check out Arrival Wrestling at Wrestle Arrival on all socials. Arrival Wrestling was apparently took. I don't know. But yeah, Wrestle Arrival is our socials. You can check me out at Punk Isaac for any updates, anything going on with the card, and also we have a very dope event coming up November 22nd at the Williams Center. They don't usually have wrestling on there, so I'm very excited to see what we could do. We got like a screen, and it's going to be our biggest capacity crowd. So the Williams Center in Rutherford, New Jersey, November 22nd. Come see some of the best competing. You got Zachary Wentz, Michael Oku, Masha Slamovich, Drew Parker announcing more. And yeah, Arrival Wrestling.
Isaac, awesome. Thank you so much for all the time tonight. Appreciate it. Good luck with Arrival.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Yo, you guys are awesome, by the way. Like, keep it up. Even the whoever comes after this show, I hope that they know, like, you guys are giving, like, a real authentic program right now. A lot of people aren't like that nowadays with podcasts, so I appreciate y'all.
Thanks so much,
You got
Isaac.
it.
Talk
Thank
to you
you.
soon.
I'll hear y'all on
Thank you,
Spotify.
Isaac.
Take care, guys.
Take care. Bye.
Yes. Thank you, Isaac. Now, speaking of Triller, because you did talk to Isaac about Triller, and obviously there was some controversy going on. So what's going on now with Triller? Are they now a public company? What's up with them?
So they're a public company. I have a funny story, John, because you know the letters changed from ABGA as expected, AGBA to ILLR, but there's also conversion of shares. So when I was looking, like overnight between the conversion, it was like up 400%. I was like, oh my God, you know, like can't wait to tell John I'm wealthy now. And then when I actually looked at my E-Trade, it was down like 30% that day. So it was like really like, I mean, I didn't put so much that like, you know, I know it's a crazy, like it bounces around so much. That's why it's like entertaining, but it was a surprise. So over the last 5 days, basically since the merger actually happened and the letter change and so on, the stock is down 35%. There's been some recovery though from there. Interestingly, though, there is now a new chief executive officer named Kevin McGurn, who said the future of entertainment is brighter than ever, and I'm thrilled to lead Triller on this exciting journey. Our new focus will ensure we deliver the best-in-class experience for creators, fans, and brands, building on our strong roots in vertical video, music, and sports. So I was like, okay, who's Kevin? So I went to his LinkedIn. The last couple of years, he's been doing some other things like VP, head of sales and marketing at T-Mobile. Okay. But his background actually does relate to like video and audio distribution. So he was the president of sales and distribution at Vivo and was at the company nearly 7 years. Prior to that, he was with Shazam. But he was also senior vice president of sales at Hulu for a little bit over 6 years. So interesting to see what expertise he brings from that company, but also with a sales focus, because certainly they need something, but also to keep it, I don't want to say that they're to keep solvency, that might be too strong a word, but like from what I could see, you know, in terms of their public filings, they were basically low on cash. So to keep it that they have enough cash on hand to keep things going. And if they don't, what type of future loans that they would need. So always interesting to follow Triller, which I guess leads us, John, into our next subject.
Yeah, what about GCW and Triller?
So like we talked about with Brett, he was very positive about the relationship with Triller. There were no issues that were shared or that it seemed that were out there. So Fightful reported that GCW is sticking with Triller, reportedly signing a deal to remain with the provider. Has agreed to terms on a new deal with the streaming service for 2 years. So, of course, this means that Triller has to stay around for that time, and have the money to pay out. But a lot of positivity surrounding that. And then, boom, John, you had sent me. It took a little while for me to respond over the Jewish holidays, but yes. The Hammerstein Ballroom, they're back. So, according to WrestleTix, so it's the same setup, 2025 tickets. After a few days, 549 had been distributed. There's still 90 days till the show, but I think they're going to need some sort of hook, in terms of a main event to sell this out again. And you can see from, 20-25% of the tickets are gone. A lot of them are not the front row is gone, but a lot of them are not in the expensive section, on the floor in the 200s yet. So there's really got to be a hook. Like for me, there's a few things, right? Like there's the WWE holiday show. I might want to go to Dave Matthews Band again around Thanksgiving. So there's some pricey tickets. So for me, I just want to know what type of show it is. But the marketing is interesting in that sort of admitting that things didn't go as well, as they would have hoped the first show, and sort of that they'll do better next time. The challenge, though, is that when people imagine GCW, even though it might not be what it is anymore, people are imagining the extreme, the blood and guts, and so on, and you can't do that in New York City. So you don't want to disappoint people there. I think you'd still have a great show, and they have had great shows, in Brooklyn and so on. But sometimes there's, raising expectations. Now, as we were just talking about with Isaac, this show at the American Dreams Mall, this is I don't know, the maximum number of tickets that they could sell, but this is basically a runaway success. There were 10 tickets left that Brett had tweeted out about, but then when I checked a few hours later, there was just 7 remaining and so on. So this will sell out, including second and third level GA. So this is by far and away their most successful show in terms of interest and potentially tickets moved, although we don't know how many tickets it is, outside of the Hammerstein ultimately selling out if it does that well. Otherwise, there are positives LA. I don't think it's sold out. Blood on the Hills 3, they were going for their 10th sellout. It did quite well. So if it was a few tickets shy, that's a shame for being able to announce that. But that did well. But Golden, Colorado didn't look like it did well. Hawaii looks slow. Sauget, Illinois looks slow. So let's see, some positives and some bumps in the road. But some of these tentpole events are getting a fair amount of attention.
What about TNA? What's going on with Joe Hendry? What's going on with Jordan Grace? What's the latest with TNA Wrestling?
Yeah, so Jordan Grace, it's been reported that her deal, although I heard this time frame a while ago, so that might have been when it was first shared, but that her deal is only through late January, so that would be expected. So, they'd have opportunities for other tapings and maybe a special or whatever, but she would likely lose to Masha Slamovich, in the Bound for Glory. We'll see, by the time people are listening to this. So that's a big asset to lose, but something that they can prepare for. And she certainly left the company better than she found it, and is a huge part of their success, recent success. And Joe Henry, he's tied up through late 2025. So for me, again, a couple steps removed, I think you have to give him, the belt and put the full spotlight on him in beating Nick Nemeth at the pay-per-view as well. So that's something to see. following that movement, like where they sustain as a company. So of course, Bound for Glory, and then the next day a taping there. In November, a double shot in Fayetteville, Winston-Salem at the end of the month, the Turning Point show, Atlanta in December, like a lot of companies for 2 days in center stage.
Who the heck is West Side Gun? You gotta tell me who that is.
John, I was going to ask you for some background. I thought you'd have me covered. Is he a
No
rapper?
clue.
Okay, I think he's a rapper.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, he's somebody of note in the music business. I'm assuming a rapper. I guess we're dating ourselves here. But on Saturday, November 2nd, he'll celebrate milestone at Heels Have Eyes 3 at the UIC Forum. This event promised an electrifying fusion of live performance, pro wrestling, cultural experiences. Following the success of previous Heels Have Eyes shows in Philly, and Cleveland, and Chicago, have performances by the Griselda artists, Pete Rock, DJ Premier, and more. So those were, music parts. The event's wrestling lineup will include major talents from TNA Wrestling, such as Jordan Grace, Moose, Joe Henry, and AJ Francis. Gunn is eager to make history with Fourth Rope. I think that's a clothing brand too. We're going to make this special. I want to have fun. I want to continue to be innovative, and I want to make history. As Saucony's new partner and his upcoming album Still Praying on the Horizon, West Side Gun continues pushing boundaries. Covert Operation powers the event with sponsors in TNA Wrestling, Tucker Ventures, Paper Planes, and Purple Brand. So that's a little bit confusing based on the article. So it says one of the sponsors is TNA Wrestling. I would think that he would be booking them for like an event fee. So TNA wrestlers getting work at least, but who's paying who to be determined. A little bit confusing there.
What about MLW? What's going on with them? I know they got a couple big shows kind of to round out the year, I guess you could say.
Yeah, November 9th, Lucha Apocalypto and Cicero. Looks like the ticket sales have picked up there. December 5th in Queens, New York, One Shot. That's typically a sellout. But into the new year, Kings of the Coliseum in North Richland Hills, Texas, which I think is to me, in terms of the broadcast and so on, that's a much better looking venue than when they run it's like a dance hall. And then Super Fight 6, of course, center stage on February 8th.
New Japan Pro Wrestling. What's going on with New Japan?
So it was pretty interesting, John. January 11th, of course, Battle in the Valley, the return there, San Jose. So it was so quiet, like right before the pre-sale, that like it just came up in my my Google alerts, and I was like, John, did anyone like talk about this show? If they are, I missed something. But relatively, they're off to a good start. I think there's about 600 tickets moved of around 2,000 for this venue, listed on WrestleTix. Lowell quietly on November 8th is running. They're running in Lowell, excuse me. They announced some talent and I think some matches, but it's sort of like maybe for this market, they have to get a little bit more on top of things in terms of creating an appealing card rather than like a slow rollout. The name New Japan doesn't mean as much here in the States, as it used to. And it's not just like a few talented people will get excited and then waiting for matches. You kind of have to get that out there. Of course, keeping our eyes on international with the collaboration just after the new year with CMLL, AEW, and so on, the second day of the Tokyo Dome. And then, of course, the Forbidden Door show in London all the way in August 2025.
How about, interestingly enough, another War Games going on? Not WWE, but there's a War Games in West Virginia.
Yeah, this is like one of those like fun stories. ASW Wrestling, a mainstay in West Virginia. They have 10 men, 2 rings, 1 cage, War Games. Donhausen is front and center for their promotion. I'm not sure if he's in the War Games, but just a local article that tickets went on sale at Halloween Mayhem on October 5th, and owner Gary Damrun said sales are ahead of the usual pace with more than 3 weeks remaining before War Games. It's the first time that I've known of it happening in West Virginia. I've never known of anybody else doing this, and so far we have sold more tickets for this already than a lot of the shows that we do pre-sales for. In total, the day of, we'll go into a show, maybe somewhere like 130, 140 tickets sold, but we're approaching 200 already. So I think we're going to have a huge crowd for this. So the pre-sales are going on at Mike's Tire Shop. So Mike must be quite busy with moving 200 tickets. So really curious to see how this turns out. Hopefully it's as well covered as the pre-sale.
Now, one last final story. Sakyaban, what is going on with them? What's the latest?
Yeah, so their PR rhythm is that they run a show in a high-profile area like New York, LA, Miami, now London, and then the fashion magazines cover it and sort of like, is this the new thing? And then they list the the different milliners and nail stylists and so on that are involved. So it's a really unique thing. So it's a long article, so maybe I'll give just a couple of snippets and people could go out and find it via Vogue Business. Could Japanese wrestling become fashion's new favorite sport? Newly launched wrestling league Sugiban is collaborating with brands from Aries to Pat McGrath Labs. As the event lands in London, Vogue Business unpacks its fashion and beauty potential. And, certainly a name like Vogue focusing on fashion and beauty, obviously that's a big deal for that side of promotion. It may have been the third day of Freeze, but Thursday night, the London fashion community gathered a very different kind of event. Queues snaked around East London streets as editors, influencers, and mega fans turned out for the new Japanese women's wrestling league launched by designer Olympia Latan and her brother-in-law Alex Detrick in 2022. Inside, the wrestlers walked a runway into the ring to resounding cheers, wearing bespoke costumes designed by Latan, makeup by world-famous makeup artist Dame Pat McGrath, and merch from buzzy London streetwear label Aries. This was not a regular wrestling match. Thursday night followed a string of sellout events across U.S. cities, New York, Miami, and L.A., each attracting different fashion and beauty partners that have so far included makeup artist Isamaya Fafrench, industrial designer Mark Newson, music artist Saweetie, independent fashion brand Soft Skin Latex, milliner Stephen Jones, visual artist Ayako Ishigura, fashion label Yagi Boy Collective, and cult nail artist Mei Kawajiri. John, how many of those names had you known before this article?
None, I think. Maybe except for Saweetie. I know who she is.
Okay. I'm only familiar with Latan from all these articles. From Lowe's Collaborative with Studio Ghibli on its Howl Moving Castle collection to Jimmy Choo and Sailor Moon. I've heard of that. Luxury fashion brands are increasingly inspired by Japanese culture and subculture. At the same time, fashion labels are reaching for increasingly niche sports to build cultural cash dedicated consumers. Could Japan's women's wrestling become fashion beauty's new favorite sport? And so on. So this is quite an extensive article. But it's like PR couldn't have written it better, right? Like I haven't seen one with like a critical eye. This is Vogue Business. I haven't seen one with a critical eye towards their business plan, whether you can convert the fashion world and even anime interest over to wrestling fans and purchase the product. So that's really where the question is. But in this niche, they are getting a and sometimes mainstream, right? Vogue. About to do the Madonna thing, but like you're sort of opening up a different market that doesn't cover it. Maybe like that, like WWF Curiosity, right? Like in the 80s type of thing, where they're like it's crossing over to the mainstream for like a short amount of time.
Very true. Very true. So let's wrap this bad boy up and head towards the plugs. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2manpowertriplavi. What do you got going on in this crazy world?
Sure. Follow me on X at LavieMarg, LavieMarg. Check out some of my long-form articles on LionCubJobSearch.com. And of course, our LinkedIn group, The Business of the Business.
Thank you to Lavi. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. Thank you to Isaac and Arrival Wrestling. Thank you. We will see everybody here right back here on the Business of the Business next week. Have a good one, folks.